All right, welcome everybody who's joined or will be seeing this in the replay. I am working on here at Cody in the Cinema. I am working on a top 10, top 15, top 20, top 25, some top list of directors. And I will pull that up on a screen share. And I'm hoping I'll get some feedback because this is an exceptionally difficult task. Maybe I can even make this a little bit more readable. Do and what I'm thinking, let's see. Okay, my live is working. All right, so I'm working on a video of a top 10, 20. Oh, a little bit of feedback. Okay, so I'm working on a video of a top 10, 20 directors, and I've got a list. I'm going through the list, and I'm trying to decide first. Vehicles outside being loud, distracting me from my studies here. I'm trying to decide how far I want to go with that, when I want to do this, what I want to talk about, and who those directors are going to be. So I have sort of three very broad tiers that I'm looking at of like different directors. So at the very top tier, everybody in that first box, excuse me, is going to make the list, okay? Yasujiro Ozu, Ingmar Bergman is going to make the list. Martin Scorsese, Bela Tarr, Alfred Hitchcock will be making that list. Stanley Kubrick, Akira Kurosawa. I'm almost certain that each of those will make the list. Beyond that, it gets a little trickier. John Ford, Sergio Leone, Victor Sjostrom, Andrei Tarkovsky, David Lynch, Robert Bresson. I'm very much hoping that all of those make whatever list I'm doing. And then Charlie Chaplin, director, Chantal Akerman, Masaki Kobayashi, which I'm going to talk a little bit about what I have to do with that. Hayao Miyazaki, Billy Wilder, Carl Dreyer, and Wim Wenders. And I am really not this. I think this comes what 20-some, 6, 7. So it's 20. So I have 20 listed there. 20 directors. And I've talked about many of these on the channel. I think I've probably talked about at least one film from each of these directors before. Looking on this list, I have. in some cases multiple times. I may put Hitchcock as low as 10. So I may move up like one of those, like for example, Tarkovsky could almost be like a top 5 for me. But really, what I'm looking at is I'm looking at a few criteria when I discuss this. Okay, and this is sort of what I wanted to have a discussion on with the stream today. I'm looking at kind of a critical mass of films. So Sergio Leone is difficult in that regard because Sergio Leone does not have like 10 strong films, right? I think if he had made more, he could have had 30. But he doesn't. Okay. It's really down to the more or less the Fistful of Dollars trilogy. You've got Once Upon a Time in America, which is insane, but there's just not that depth. So that's my only real struggle with that. I mean, Once Upon a Time in the West is my favorite movie, right? So I've got quality films, but I don't have the depth. So I'm not sure what to do with that. But it's tough to like imagine a world where I leave him off of here. Similarly, in that regard, Victor Sjöström, like I've seen a few of his films; they're terrific, but I don't know how deep they go in terms of like the really great ones. And some of that could be lost films. Like there's a lot to that director. I don't know, you know. I really like A Man There Was, for example, and that's like just a great film, you know. But I don't know. And a lot of the rest of these on here are very deep. Okay. And then that bottom tier is like directors that I think are almost like in a dark horse territory, or I'm just uncertain where they would land, right? So an example of someone that I put on there today, Miyazaki, that he did like a few of the Studio Ghibli films. As far as I'm concerned, like that's prime film material, right? So even though they're animated, it would seem to me like that's someone who at least belongs somewhat in the conversation. Now, I have put the name Masaki Kobayashi on here without being as familiar as I need to be with his films. So before I do this list, I have a few things I have to do. I have to finish the entire Human Condition series, and I have watched the first one. In a very small portion of the second, I need to go back and just watch all 3. It is entirely possible that after I do that, and after I watch Kwaidan, after I go through that, and I've been through some of that, after I go through that, it's very possible he'll end up on my list. But again, it's like a depth chart thing, right? So I'm looking at a critical mass of, does this director just have so many films that it's just, you know, it's impossible to leave them off. That's why I'm going to have Bergman very, very high on my list, because Ingmar Bergman has a giant criterion dedicated to him. Okay. And I believe the reason for this is because his films are really good. His films, like, what did I do in the last year? Fanny and Alexander was the big new one. I rewatched Persona, incredible films. Just incredible films. Beyond that, I'm looking at influence. Okay. What influence does this director have over other directors, particularly major directors? And do we see this work still happening? Like, is this work still going on, right? So, good example of this, John Ford has inspired pretty much everybody with those wide shots, right? Those beautiful Western shots. There's a certain film language, I think, that can't be matched in that way. And then I'm looking at somebody like Bresson. How influential is Bresson? I think David Shipman, in his book, The Story of Cinema, called Kobayashi's Human Condition Trilogy, the greatest film ever made. Not sure it is, but it is a contender. Human Condition 1 was very, very, very good. I haven't seen it in a long time. So I think I'm going to sit down to that. If I'm not mistaken, that's the Harakiri director, and that in and of itself is pretty impressive. So I think I'm going, like, this is why I'm kind of leaning toward doing a top 20 or 25, is because it's just, there's certain people that are so foundational. And we were talking about influence here, like Miyazaki and the Ghibli films are way, way, and like, so if you're a physical media collector and you collect physical media in the United States, part of the reason Orbit DVD, one of the best shops in the country, is still functioning and is still a good shop and has stayed alive is because of the Studio Ghibli films and their impact on culture that goes even beyond just like film nerds, right? Like myself. And so those films are really, really special. And just to kind of, and this is something that I wanted to talk a little bit about in the live stream. I'm going to see, let's see. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I've got that director on here, because I think that this is really worth something worth thinking about. Yeah, I need Orson Welles should probably be on here. I watch more Orson Welles, is the truth of it. So here's what I'm saying. I'm looking at this director, and I've not seen all of these movies, but that is an insane list of films. Just even here in this, like, just even right here, Spirited Away is an amazing film. Howl's Moving Castle I have not seen yet. Yeah, Wells called Stagecoach his model. Yeah, I think I remember him talking about reading it, or not reading it, watching it like a bunch of times. Stagecoach is insane, but it sometimes gets overlooked because I don't know why it does. But then Totoro, My Neighbor Totoro, Princess Mononoke, like these films, Kiki's Delivery Service, like these films, it's hard to imagine a world where the films this good I'm just not thinking about, because they're animated. And you know, I think I haven't seen these three. I haven't seen The Wind Rises, which should be like, these three are probably really good too. But I know that these up here, like, it's just hard to imagine not at least thinking about him in that discussion. So that's part of what I wanted to say here, in case he doesn't end up on the list. And so then there are directors that I just plain don't have the experience, and I haven't gone all the way like through their filmography. So Orson Welles would be one where I'm like, you know, I don't know. I don't know how high I would put up there. And then personal preference is something I'm going to talk about a lot, because you know, certain directors appeal to you more than others. But if you watch this on live replay, or if you tune in here, I want to talk about why I'm even doing this in the first place, right? Like, what is the value in something like this? What is the value in discussing a top list of X number of directors? And the reason for this is, I think, partially like a decision fatigue or being overwhelmed, right, with films. So if you go online, or someone goes online and they are looking for what to watch next, they get really overwhelmed with choices. And by me selecting and saying, here's a box. But, oh gosh, this is hard to do with my mirror. Here's you get the idea. Here's a box. Here's a box of stuff. Here's some directors to check out, especially if you're newer to these kinds of movies. So by having just a list, I think it's helpful. Along those lines. Okay, along those lines. This is where I really find this kind of thing to be helpful. Just to kind of talk here. All right, where is it? I meant to pull this up. Okay. This is an example of where lists are actually a lot more helpful than they seem like they are. This is the Sight and Sound poll, top 20 greatest films, not directors, but films, which I think is one of the best lists out there that you can have besides the directors poll. I look at this was a Sight and Sound poll. This was a poll taken in 2022, and there are individual lists from directors and film critics, but directors especially, and just different folks involved with movies. This list, or any version of like who voted on this list, is a very helpful place to go to for like, does this film have something worth watching? And I think that's kind of why I like the idea, of that. Yeah. So making a list by films, not really directors, but also, so something I've noticed with directors, and the Man from London, that's a Bela Tarr film. I don't think The Man from London is nearly as good as like Satan Tango, for example, but it's still miles better than most movies. And I've noticed that, another example, I made a video about, oh gosh, that's another person, Robert Altman. I made a video where I talked about like a few underrated, I think two underrated Robert Altman movies. And I'll notice that directors will just have some commonalities that really draw me to their material, even when it's slightly weaker than their very best, or even when it's much weaker than their very best. And that's part of it too. It's kind of fun to go through and look at a director and how they change and evolve. And because sometimes, like this list, for example, this is just a lot of different kinds of stuff thrown at you. I mean, you think about how different of a film is Jeanne Dielman as opposed to like Man with a Movie Camera. I mean, they're just like, you know, but but Man with a Movie Camera, like I don't think I've seen any other Vertov films. This movie's great, by the way. Man with a Movie Camera is awesome. And then I think of something like Claire Denis Beautrevis, like that's, I don't know what more from that director, but I like List. Yeah, Altman is great. The Buffalo Bill film is better than people say it is. It's not like the best well-rounded like product or whatever, but that movie really hits when it hits. Anyway, but yeah, like I think List can be useful for that. Like I think List can be useful for just trying to have sort of stopping points along your journey that you can be like, okay, you know what? Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans. All right, here's my first silent film. I'm going to go in there. This is going to be my first or second silent film, and I'm going to watch it. This is something I can focus on and I can take in and sort of synthesize, and it can just be that, right? It can just be Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans. Now that you mention it, now that I'm thinking about it, this is why I wanted to make this. This is why I wanted to do this live. This is why I wanted to do this live, this brainstorming process. I'll stop sharing that for a minute. Nope, just did the wrong button. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share back. Yeah. I think we're going to put Robert Altman in here as a consideration. So let's look a little bit at Robert Altman. That's not right. Let's see. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Robert Altman here. This is probably a good idea because this wasn't even like on my radar whenever I was thinking, and this is why this is really helpful. What do we have here? Popularity. Let's go by highest rating on Letterboxd here. All right. This is a pretty stacked lineup of films. And this is like, again, like I haven't seen it as much Robert Altman as some others. Like McCabe and Mrs. Miller, for example. I think McCabe and Mrs. Miller is a top 10, if not top 5 Western. And then Shuts, like that's a film I really want to see that I'm almost positive will be great. And then there's others like The Player's really, really, really strong. And I haven't seen some of these, like Nashville, Three Women. The Long Goodbye is like probably not the most mainstream kind of film, but it's really, really good. And then beyond that, we just get to like all these other. We even have films in here, like That Cold Day in the Park is really is. I've talked about that on my channel before. I think that was one of the films. Yeah, I've been meaning to see Three Women forever. That cold, like this film, That Cold Day in the Park. That's an example of why I like to look deep into a director, because I hadn't realized that would be, as good as it actually is for such a limited kind of movie. MASH, I know people have mixed thoughts on that now, but I enjoyed it the one time I saw it. And then we've even got stuff like, A Prairie Home Companion. I didn't even know he directed that, and that's on Roger Ebert's great movie list. So that's kind of Kansas City. I think Arrow Video has a release of that. And so you go down here and maybe like they're not all. Where's the Buffalo Bill film? I don't see that on here. Director. He has a film called like Buffalo Bill, and I just literally don't see it on here. There it is. Buffalo Bill and the Indians. Like a strong director makes even a film like this a little better than it should be. With Paul Newman, excellent set design on that film. Definitely feels like you're just going back into the West, like when you watch it, even though the story's uneven. So that's kind of where this can be helpful. Something like this. One that I'm. So this is one that I don't think is probably going to make it for me, but maybe it should. Maybe this should. Yeah, I've never seen California Split, but I'm positive it's good. Like should this be on here? I don't think so. But like a lot of people would be like, Cody, you got to have this stuff on here. I haven't seen Barton Fink, so I don't think I have the full. Like Inside Llewyn Davis, I really couldn't get into, but obviously it's probably fine. It might even be great. I just didn't give it a chance. So Brother Art, that was a big deal growing up. I like that. It's an entertaining movie. Fargo is much better than most movies out there, but I still don't know. I don't know if like the Coen brothers really have that that full kind of elite edge that I'm looking for. I'm not sure. I certainly really think Miller's Crossing is underrated. That movie's incredible. No Country for Old Men, most people are higher on that movie than me, but it's obviously very good. So kind of neo-Western, if you want to call it that. So, I mean, it's very possible that that I should be thinking about the Coens. I don't know. One big question that I have, and I'm going to hope that on the replay, especially, like I get some kind of indication. I need to figure out where to put this guy. I need to figure out where in the world I'm putting this guy. And I don't know. Like, I don't know how high to put Marty. And the reason is, if you're talking influence on movies, and someone can, maybe someone will completely disagree with me on this. But if you're talking about influence on motion pictures and quality movies, this is the best. If you were talking purely influence, love of movies, getting movies out there, effect on movies, importance to movies, this is the best. But that's not exactly all we're talking about, right? But if we were talking about very specifically both influence and importance to movies, no one is as important as Marty, I don't think, in the entire history of movies. That includes like Griffith, right? I just literally don't think anybody is. Because here's a guy who has done infinite, like, restoration, talks of restoration, helping guys like Kurosawa get going, and on other projects. Like, I just can't imagine what movies would have been without Scorsese coming along when he did. So there's that part of it. And then he was and is a great director in his own right. Like, those Goodfellas, Taxi Driver, Casino, Raging Bull, After Hours, King of Comedy, like, some of these films are just insane. Just so good. I think Scorsese probably has 8 to 10 films that are like, upper tier. And then he's got a lot of solid ones too. So I don't know. I don't know how high I'm going to put Marty. At certain points, he's been my number one. But I think I have to put him pretty high. Well, that's what I was saying, though. So this is a good talking point, and this is how I could be tempted to fill. I'm torn about Marty. Can't really complain. Lots of great films, but some that are just competent. That sounds like Alfred Hitchcock to me, and that's totally like a reasonable top 10. Is Alfred Hitchcock, lots of competent films, a few great ones. So for me, if you're talking about Marty's truly great films, I mean, you've got at least 4 or 5 that are truly, truly great, depending on how much you like. Like, I think Casino's as good as anything out there, but it kind of depends on personal preference. That one may not be for everybody. The Departed's in my personal top 100, but I don't think it's like as good as those other films. I just really, really have a personal attachment to the film because every year, whenever school gets out, I always watch at least a little bit of it. And I watched it on a plane going to Vegas. We didn't stay in Vegas. We went to Beatty, then we went to Death Valley, and that was like the only thing I wanted to watch on. So I get up after this plane ride, having watched The Departed again, and then I'm in like a few hours later, I'm hanging out with some burros outside of Death Valley. That's just like one of those, memories. But yeah, like I said, if you're talking influence, I mean, we have the Martin Scorsese World Cinema Project, right? We have his My Voyage to Italy, which I did a whole video on a while back. I would have never ever been into Italian neorealism the way I am without Martin Scorsese. I mean, it just would not have happened, right? Oh, yep. I need to talk a little bit more about Hitchcock. That reminds me. This is something else I meant to. Okay. I mean, surely, right? Surely this guy belongs somewhere, right? Like, Desika or Deseki, it's Desika, right? Because it's E, the I is like an E in Italian. Desika. Yeah, Fellini feels to me like I should probably have Fellini on this list somewhere. We put him. We put, like, this is what I'm saying. This is getting so hard, right? Like, this is getting so difficult. All right, somebody. All right, so yeah. All right, somebody get mad at me real quick, okay? Somebody get mad at me. I don't love Knights of Cabiria. And I don't love Armacord, but I like them quite a bit. And Ivy Delaney's awesome. Julia, like these, like 8.5's awesome. With Dolce Vita, I have a picture in my guest room, which doubles that particular poster there. With Dolce Vita, I have that poster in my guest room where we kind of like double it as a room. When I start snoring too loud, and my wife like needs to take a break from my snoring. I love Fellini. I love my Fellini pack. La Strada, I need to watch again because it's been a very long time on La Strada. It's been a long time on La Strada. And there was a time when Fellini was in my top 10, but I don't know. Like, maybe it's just an ebb and flow. But I think Fellini belongs in the conversation. Someone said that in chat. I absolutely agree. I mean, 8.5. What an imaginative film, right? And La Dolce Vita, that was the first like dramatic, expansive, cinematic kind of film I got into. I think that wasn't in English. I had a copy of it. I found a copy of it at an FYE. And man, I remember putting that on every night for like a few weeks. I would at least watch part of it. You know what I mean? Even if I didn't watch the whole thing. That film is just so incredible to me. So like, this is definitely someone who probably belongs in the conversation. So let's go through the list again, and let's go through the list. It was an entry point, yeah. Let's think about the list and see if there's anything like I'm very obviously like Cody in the Cinema. You are a big old dum-dum for missing it. Okay, let's see if there's anything like that. So let's go through the list as I'm kind of thinking about this here. Let's go through the list. And let's try to make sure there's not anything huge I'm missing. Oh, I do need to talk about. I do need to go through this. I do need to go through this conversation. But I thought of this. Where'd you go? Okay. All right. Ozu, Bergman, Scorsese, Bela Tarr, who I'm going to have pretty high up on my personal list. Hitchcock, Kubrick, Kurosawa, Ford, Leone, Sjostrom, Tarkovsky, David Lynch, Robert Bresson, Charlie Chaplin, Ackerman, Kobayashi, the Studio Ghibli director Miyazaki, Billy Wilder, Carl Dreyer, Wim Wenders, Altman, Fellini, and then I guess it's about time we deal with this Spielberg thing. So I'm trying to think. Yeah, Fassbender, I just don't have the knowledge. I've seen 2 Fassbender films. That's probably a mistake on my part. Ali Fear Eats the Soul and The Marriage of Maria Braun. Yeah. Thank you, Ronald Iron, for mentioning that. That's why I live streamed. Okay. Okay. All right. What? Okay, yeah, let's have that conversation. This is a conversation to have. See, like, how big is this list gonna get? How do I do this? This isn't fair. There's a part in Goodfellas where someone says, "This isn't even fair." This isn't even fair. Right. And what do I do with this, huh? And I haven't seen everything. I need to watch Red. White was only okay for me. Blue was amazing. I made a whole video on, and please watch my video on Decalogue if you haven't. I was proud of my Decalogue video. Is it worth 10 hours? The answer is obviously yes. In the Decalogue, I forgot to update my top 100 with the Decalogue in it because the Decalogue's probably in my top 30 or 20 films. So that's a whole conversation in of itself, right? The Decalogue is really 10 films. So really, you know, if the Decalogue is 10 films, and we can all agree that at least we like one of the 3 Colors trilogy, and I've not even seen the Double Life of what's the Double Life movie? I don't know anything about that one at all. I know nothing about that film. And I'm sure it's really good. I've heard it's really good. Kieslowski has to be in here, right? Like in the conversation. So I'll put has to be in the conversation. I mean, he just has to be. All right, let me throw another one at you. And I want your opinions on this to tell me if I need to spend my time. This is very, very important. If you watch this on the replay, I need some help. I have a giant, I have a giant problem in my movie watching career, okay? And this would influence this video too. This is another reason I went live. I need some help with this one. This is embarrassing. This is a huge hole, okay? I have seen one film, one from this director. I don't even know how to say his name. Is it Haneke? Haneke? One film. And this is like, I've seen The Piano Teacher. I'm going to be talking about The Piano Teacher on a video that I'm either going to put out tomorrow or Wednesday, because The Piano Teacher is a really phenomenal film. You would think that because of that, I would have watched more from this director, but I think The Piano Teacher is part of the reason I haven't. Because if you haven't heard of The Piano Teacher, yeah, you're a hater. Watching The Piano Teacher is a miserable, wonderful experience. Let me say that. But I don't know. It's a director. I don't know. So we'll think on that. But we need to have the conversation. We need to have a frank conversation here. A brutally honest, frank conversation. Yeah, Ronald, that's kind of like, yeah, I know. Man, the piano teacher's so hard. I'd forgotten how bad it was. I mean, good. It's great. It's great. I just meant like hard to watch. Um, I was watching. It's like there's a really good YouTube channel. I think it's called 20th and 21st Century Videos or Movies. The guy that runs it, his name is James. He's a phenomenal, phenomenal YouTuber. He's like, he's got like 4, 5, 6,000 subs, something like that. And he was talking about Miss 45 today, and that kind of made me think of the piano teacher. Read the original novel, yeah. Read Rebecca. Read that book. Read that book and watch the Hitchcock movie again. That's really good. All right, what about this guy? Where are we going with this guy? I don't know. I don't know what to do with Spielberg, man. I Spielberg is so important to my um Spielberg is so important to my like history with movies. I one of my first probably truly great movie experience was seeing Jurassic Park as a little kid. I never have forgotten getting out of my van, being excited for dinosaurs, getting a Nerf gun that I was going to shoot my imaginary dinosaurs with, and then like seeing that film on the big screen. And one of the great things about Jurassic Park is that it leads people to Laura Dern, which leads people to David Lynch. Schindler's List, obviously strong. Jaws, a movie I watch once every year or two. Saving Private Ryan, E.T. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Spielberg because I mean Jaws is an incredible movie, right? It's just an incredible movie. And this Outer Galaxy Lounge, that is sort of how I feel. I'm not going to be a snoot and hate on Spielberg, but I don't see him at the level of some of the others. I don't either. That does not mean he's not a talented, awesome director. I will be genuinely upset when Steven Spielberg passes away. Like, he worked on Close Encounters of the Third Kind with Truffaut, who should probably also be on this list. And oh, that reminds me of another thing. That reminds me of something else. But yep, good segue there to the next one. And this is like, given where we're going with some of this, I'm going to put this up there for consideration. Yeah, I'm with you, Ronald. I kind of agree. But let's talk about somebody that's really tough for me to rank. Because I feel like I'm just going to get absolutely blasted for this. Top 10? No. What do y'all think? Top 10? Top 20? Top 30? Top 100? I mean, I love Godard, and I didn't used to. But because let me tell you what happened with Godard and what I think is happening with a lot of people. And this is important for the replay. Okay, so here's how this always goes with this director. You hear about this director because he's famous and very influential, particularly with Breathless. And then you watch Breathless. That's step 2. Breathless is weird. It turns you off of French New Wave in its entirety. That's step 3. Step 4, you get into more French New Wave and really like it. Step 5, you return to Breathless and love it. That's how it went for me. And then, after Breathless, because I have the 4K back there from Criterion, it's absolutely one of my favorite 4Ks. Yeah, I know, right? That's how Contempt, y'all. Contempt has Fritz Lang as an actor, who should also be on this list, by the way. I haven't gone through the silence. Vivre sa vie is amazing. That's a great film with it. I mean, it has the Passion of Joan of Arc in it, right? And then I've watched like Weekend. That's the thing, though, right? Like Weekend. So Weekend, for example, Weekend is good, and I've recommended it on my channel, but it's not nearly as good as some of his other stuff. But Contempt, that is a film. So maybe not top 10, maybe top 30. I mean, we just had a film come out about him, right? Where they a film came out about him, and it was about there was a film that came out that was about Breathless that was supposed to be kind of cool. And then there's all these other films. That's a hard one. All right. So we've had that conversation. Let me ask y'all something. Because I think people, if you watch my channel long enough, and if you're seeing this on the replay, you're going to know where I'm going to put this director. But I'm just curious how high other people are going to be. So if you see this on the replay or right now, how high are you going on Ozu? Because I know I'm going to go higher than most people. But I'm just curious. Like, I think Ozu is a mandatory top 10. Mandatory. The question is, how high do people go individually with Ozu? And how many people put Ozu ahead of Kurosawa? Because Kurosawa is going to be the number one for some of my viewers. And that's a perfectly like acceptable, great decision. So the question is, is Ozu like, if you go to my Letterboxd, I basically put all of my Ozus together with having a special affinity for Floating Weeds and Autumn Afternoon, Late Spring, and Tokyo Story. And Ozu was not life circumstances maybe like Ozu like extra. The Flavor of Green Tea Over Ice sounds awful, and it is an awesome movie with a great cover. I have been. I will watch everything from Ozu. If you like Wim Wenders, or Wim Wenders, however you want to say it, then he was heavily influenced by Ozu, and he's talked about that, how much he loves Ozu. All right, this is a good thought. To me, Mizoguchi, number one to Japanese cinema, Kurosawa, then Ozu. Sounds like you have good taste in movies. I'm drawing a blank. Remind me of a title of Mizoguchi. Apologies for all of this if I mispronounce things. I'm just I'm doing the best I can. Is that I've got the movie on the tip of my tongue. Oh, Ugetsu. Yeah. Yep. Let's put him. I'm gonna. Yeah. I did the live stream for me, not for anyone else, by the way, because you all are giving me such good ideas. I did a video on 3 Japanese masterpieces you should see. And I talked about Tokyo Story, I talked about this movie, and then I talked about Akiru, the great Kurosawa film. Folks, if you're watching this on the replay and you have not seen Ugetsu, this movie is so cool. Like, I have a DVD of this that I got forever ago. And I rewatched it on the DVD, and it was still awesome. Like, it's hard to like. I just don't understand how this movie paced this well, and then like was still eerie and just morally instructive. This is crazy good. So yeah, this director and yeah, okay, yeah. I remember now. I was just talking about this director. I forget he did Sancho the Bailiff. So Sancho the Bailiff is also incredible. The other day on the stream, I was talking about the life of Oharu, and then I want to see the Chrysanthemum, and then there's the 40. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff on here from this director. I don't know if I like my choice of my poster of Yugetsu. We should probably change that. Man, I wish that this had. I like to be able to have the English titles on my poster. I would just like use one of these. I just don't feel like they have a great Yugetsu poster. I don't know. Yeah, and I haven't seen a lot of his 30s films. I watch a lot of 30s films. All right, another person we should just briefly talk about. Thanks for everybody that stayed in with me. I did not know that was in the Crichton Collection. That's pretty sweet. All right, who's this guy? I think we should have this conversation. I don't think this is going to get there, but Truffaut, yeah, we should probably talk about that. Any consideration? I mean, surely you'd have this guy in your top like 100, but I mean, I really like Lenote, La Ventura, Red Desert. Seen those. I'm gonna go on a soapbox for a minute. And if you watch this on the replay, let me know how you feel. La Ventura, I read for years. I would read people be like, it's long, it's meandering, it's blah blah blah. It goes all over the place. It's cool, but you got to hang with it. And La Ventura is just like a lights out, excellent movie. And that criticism held me back for a long time. I love La Ventura. I have not seen Blow Up, but I have seen Blow Out, which is great. Right? So I don't know. Maybe it's something to think about. Yeah, I think like actually La Ventura, like I almost want to watch that again, like fairly soon, because all right, are we back to this screen? We are not. Okay. All right. How about yeah, it does. It does change what movies can be for you. Let me tell you someone I had not even considered, but I want to see if I'm just in the wrong here. Wasn't even considering Coppola. Can anyone tell me why I'm wrong? I was not even considering Coppola. Not even in a top 25. Top 50 I would, but not a top 25. Because in my mind, you have 3 great films. And then you have and I haven't seen Rumblefish in a long time, but I remember really liking it. I've never been the biggest person for the conversation. I certainly like it. I just never was. But I mean, like, you know, like Like I would put. How about this? I would put Brian De Palma above Coppola. Is that bad? Like, would I get 20 people unsub for me on YouTube if I said that? Because I do. Now, to be perfectly crystal clear with you, the first three on that list are as good as anything out there. But I don't know. I don't know later. I don't know later on how far you go. I watched The Godfather Part 2 on 4K with my dad a couple months ago, and it was incredible. That's a great movie. I'm not going to watch Megalop, but I was excited for it. I did a trailer reaction very early on my channel, but I just like I don't know. I don't think I'm considering Coppola. I mean, maybe I should have. There's no way that movie's in like I. All right, here's a course, and this is a true dark horse, and I want people to tell me if I'm way off my rocker here, either live or in the comments. If I am off my rocker, Romer, Romer. I need to watch Romer films. I don't think I've seen a single one. I don't think I've seen a single one, and I've also only seen Playtime by Jacques Tati, and that's like someone you could think about. But this one's going to be one, and I top 25. Is this anybody top 25 on John Carpenter? Is that just me? Is that just a hot take? I mean, Ozu does not make Ozu made like 20 different films, man. What are you talking? All right, John Carpenter is top 25, right? Surely, if we take Nope. Have films ever had more personality in our time than John Carpenter, though? Like, for example, Escape from New York. Escape from New York has to, and Big Trouble in Little China, has anything ever been made like those? Here's another take. Okay? The most underrated horror film of all time is Christine. This is the most underrated horror film of all time. Yeah, maybe we should talk about De Palma. I think this film is a 5-star horror film. I think this is a great film. In fact, next Halloween, I will probably expand on all the reasons I think this film is just vastly underrated. I may even do a whole video on it, just like all the reasons why I think Christine is legit like a legendary movie. But because there's a lot of good stuff in Christine. Screenwriting, use of the camera, acting, unique concept, like great use of music, nostalgia. Like there's so much going on in Christine that's like so underrated to me. I just but anyway, that's just my little soapbox about Christine. Okay. I have and like I know that's that's not like the most cinephile thing, but yeah, that was another conversation to have. What is the name? Would we ever put De Palma Like, would we ever put De Palma in our top 25? I think it's certainly probably not, but maybe. I mean, we've got I don't think we do, right? It's not quite deep enough because like let's take Dress to Kill for example. That's a pretty good movie. It's a problematic movie, but it's not quite there's just not enough here, I don't think. I just don't know if there's enough here. But I do love Brian De Palma. On my fun tracks playlist, the I have the song from Body Double. All right. So starting to find stopping points here. Let's look here at some of the conclusions we've come to. And some of this I've made notes and I'll have to go back. Is Hitchcock like I don't know if Hitchcock is really actually in my personal top 10, but gosh, man, when his movies hit, they hit. Kubrick could be as high as 3 for me. Bergman could be as high as 1 or 2. I mean, Bergman's catalog is just so stacked. No, there's just no one. No, I know, but Hitchcock just like his characters, man. His characters are sometimes not as good as some of these others. Like if you're talking me personally, individually, I like Tarkovsky better than Hitchcock. But I'm also kind of obsessed with Tarkovsky, even though he doesn't have the largest filmography. And I know people have mixed thoughts on Bresson, but he's certainly making a top 10 for me. Actually, if you're a Bresson fan, Lancelot of the Lake, whatever that's called, his version's on Criterion. I bumped everything off my watch list to do that next. Well, it's on Criterion. And then we have a few others that I've talked about that maybe are kind of like worth a conversation. I love all Bresson. L'Argent's so insane. But I could see why though. Okay, so like Chaplin, maybe I should have a whole stream about Chaplin and Buster Keaton. That might be worth a stream. Chantal Akerman, I am huge on Chantal Akerman. I think she was one of the very most brilliant, innovative cinema directors ever. Kobayashi, I probably need to go down there a little bit more. Miyazaki, Kowalski, again, thanks for reminding me of that. Billy Wilder, I mean, Carl Dreyer, the Vendors, yeah, or Eisenstein, yeah. Yep. I'm gonna put him on there. I'm gonna put him on there to be thinking about. I like Eisenstein more than most. He was outside of my top 10, so I hadn't when I was first making this list. I've not seen Ivan the Terrible Part 2, but Part 1 is amazing. And then I've got probably not Spielberg, probably Fellini. And then I was trying to wonder, like, I wonder if there's anybody I shouldn't, like, for example, this list might change in a few years because There's certain directors we have now. Edward Yang, yeah. I just don't have as much familiarity with Yang. A Brighter Summer Day is an absolutely brilliant film. Beautiful. Love that movie. Gorgeous film. Like, I'm wondering, 10 years from now, how will people feel about somebody like Park Chan-wook, right? How will people feel about somebody like who's the other one I was thinking of? The Parasite director, can't think of his name. Yeah, Yi. Yeah, that was Edward Yang. Yeah. I watched a third of that film on my phone and on the beach. Bong Joon-ho, yeah, or however you say his name. Again, I'm not the best with pronunciations. He also did Memories of Murder, I think. I'm just wondering. There are a handful of directors right now, like Bela Tarr, for example. We're already seeing people like me that are so drawn to his work, and his work's like relatively recent, and he passed away relatively recently, right? Like his last film was in 2013, and The Turin Horse feels as timeless as anything that's ever been made. Damnation being my favorite Bela Tarr film. So like I'm kind of wondering, I'm not a person who really suffers from recency bias, with the exception of the fact that so many silent films have been lost. I can't evaluate some of the old directors as well as I'd like to. But I wonder, since I don't watch nearly as much newer stuff, if I'm not really sleeping on somebody who's working like right now. With the exception of Martin Scorsese, who I will be surprised if he has anything else that's to his best caliber. With the exception of that, right? Or Coppola, if Coppola came out with something insane, right? I just wonder if there's anybody else who I'm missing, or out of younger directors. Oh, there is somebody I want to talk about because I'm kind of winding down here, but there's somebody I want to talk about that I want to have in this conversation. And I'm going to look up those two names. Okay. I probably have heard of them. Out of people who are like modern, I'm telling y'all, like this is like I have two films that I want an upgrade to. Oh, a few films, but I want The Horse Thief. I want a good physical media of that. I don't know if that'll ever happen without buying the $300 Blu-ray that exists. But I have a bad DVD of Apichatpong's Persephical's Uncle Boonmee, Who Can Recall His Past Lives. And then I've seen Tropical Malady, Cemetery of Splendor. I will be watching Mysterious Object at Noon whenever I get that in, because I'm probably going to order the World Cinema from Martin Scorsese. This director is somebody that I think we need to be watching. I don't know like what all he's still making. I don't really know where he is right now, If she had not gone for superhero movies, Greta Gerwig could have been somebody, but I think she's decided to go corporate, and that's okay. Like, nothing wrong with that. Just not what I would have done. But here we have, I think this director here is somebody I should not forget about, because Uncle Boonmee is like, and then those other films I mentioned, really incredible films. So I think I've got a good starting point. and I may have to have this conversation again because I don't think I'm going to do this video anytime soon. Um, it's probably going to have to be a top 25, and like I just don't know how to do a top 10. I just don't know how to do it. But I want to do that. I want to give people, something to look at, some films to think about, and to be candid with you, that's the kind of film that might do really well on YouTube. I'm kind of in that area right now where if you're not familiar with how YouTube works, if you hit 4,000 hours of watch time in a year, YouTube starts giving you money. um, and my primary purpose with YouTube is just to talk about and celebrate great films, and then wherever I land, with like whatever out of it's fine. This is a work of love. But popular videos are nice because you want to be able to fuel that, and you want people to see movies about content. But that's just something that I think might perform well. But every video I do not do because I think it will perform well. If I am very passionate about a film, I'll talk about it, even if I don't think anybody will really watch it. That's just because, again, like, I just want somebody to see a great film, and I want them to enjoy that film. And I want people that don't have a lot of, avenues for expression, like people. So I grew up in an area where there was absolutely nothing to do, but you could watch movies. You know, you could watch movies, and so I think this is a great avenue for people that don't have a lot of artistic outlets. I work in an area, small town kind of area, and so ultimately, I really want that to happen. But um, yeah, yeah, I don't like, and I don't when I'm if you watch my videos, you'll notice that I don't do a lot of like I ch- I don't do a lot of like negativity toward movies in general, because if I don't like a movie, I tend to turn it off. Or if I am just not into it, I might pick it up later. I I only have so much time to watch so many movies, right? And so I really focus on stuff that I can tell you I liked or that I loved. You know, I can't always love every movie, but if I thought there was something there, I'll talk about it on my channel. So, you know, and sometimes those niche videos, like, they pull in people over time, right? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about it, right? Whenever you're, you know, I can, I'll give you an example. I bought a DVD of Super Baby Geniuses a long while ago, thinking that might be a fun video to do, where I like talk about everything wrong with that movie because I was going to watch it. Then I was like, what's going to happen? I'm going to watch that movie be miserable, and nothing's going to be gained from that. like, like, um, so what I'd rather do is what just happened. Somebody will watch this replay. They will have never heard of Apichatpong Perceptical, and they will now at least look at this Letterboxd page, and they might see one of his films, and their life will be better. So that's kind of what I'm hoping will happen, and that's the kind of space that I want to create as much as possible. So, but at the same time, like, you'd eventually, you know, you'd like to be able to just do this for a living, right? You'd like to be able to just do movies, but that's not what matters. What matters is that you're discussing great films and that you're sharing ideas about great films. So anyway, so I'm glad we had this conversation. And if you watch on the replay, please leave anything you agree or disagree. If you watch any part of this, I really appreciate people who hung with me. This ended up being an hour. This is going to be going on an hour and 20 minutes almost. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Yeah, that's exactly right. The more people, yeah, YouTube does reward consistency. And sincerity, right? Like you want to be sincere. So anyway, I hope this was enjoyable. And if you have any ideas, hey Adam. Oh yeah, it'll be on the replay. This was a really good conversation. Adam, I see your comment there. There are a few folks in here that contributed just a lot of really good ideas. I'm going to try to have this stream on Mondays, and maybe like last week I did like 3 of them because I was trying to get the hang of it. But I'm going to try to have this stream on Mondays, as especially if I've been just watching a bunch of random stuff. I kind of took a little bit of a movie break this weekend, sort of needed to, but I'll try to have this, especially like if people have, stuff they, or if I'm on, like, if I'm, if it's the weekend, I don't have anything to do, I might just pull up a stream and talk about movies. So, I think it could be kind of fun. But yeah, hit me up with your ideas in the comments. And then, the West Coast is sweet. I can't wait to go back to Wyoming. That's going to be fun. I will have a video out later in the week, probably tomorrow or tomorrow, Wednesday. And I'm going to do 3 films from the Criterion Collection of underrated performances from actresses. And I have some ideas. You can get it in the Fellini pack or on the Criterion channel. White Sheet. I think it's on the Criterion channel, but it is in the Criterion pack. Yeah, the giant Criterion pack, you can get it in there. It's good. It's in there, and it might even be on the Criterion channel or Canopy. Check out Canopy. Check that out with your library. See if you can get that streaming service. And anybody else who's watching. But I'm going to wind down here. Thanks everybody for coming in. And like I said, send me your ideas.